Women podcast. For your career and your life, no matter what business you're in.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Northern Power Women podcast. I'm Sam Walker, she is Simone Roche, and currently, and this hasn't been the case, Simone, this year, we're both in a city where it's raining.
Have you moved? Have you come back to the UK?
It's rained for the first time in Arizona this week for 110 days. 110 days, no rain. Everyone here is beside themselves with excitement that it's raining. And I'm like, yeah, I've seen a lot of that. I know what that stuff is. Don't worry about it.
Wow. Good for the cactus though, right?
Absolutely. They need a little bit of a drink, bless them. All good stuff. So we've got loads to talk about this week. First up, what a fantastic online get-together we had last week with hashtag NPW Cheers. Even if I only had a brew on, it was brilliant.
Oh, do you know, it was great. We were really adamant that we were going to celebrate this autumn, this winter period. We wanted to try and have that uplift. You know, we were due to have the rescheduled awards on the 7th, which was obviously the NPW Cheers night. Yeah. So we wanted to make sure we could bring people together to raise a brew, as you did, as many did, or to raise a glass of something sparkly, whatever anyone fancied, whether they were in their PJs or in their fancy frocks. It was just brilliant. It was good just to, you know, get people together and ask them who their cheer for the year were, ask them who the song that got them through, who was the person that got them through. And equally, like really importantly, who, you know, high-fiving themselves. So it was great. It was great. Me and Northern Powerman and I were in the MSP studios playing dress up in our Santa jumpers and stuff like that. So it was great. It was great, actually. It was great to be able to virtually bring people together in the Twitter sphere. And it was a bit like the warm-up, really, because as you will have seen as well, we've now made the announcement that the date of the 2020 awards will be the 8th of March 2021. But we know that all makes sense, right? And it's challenging. You know, I've been really, really waiting to bring together, you know, everybody in Manchester Central or in a venue together to celebrate, because I'm not, you know, never been prepared to just do the event, get it out of the way. It's just not how we roll. The awards are such a hugely invested program, if you like. You know, we started on this in August last year. Can you believe it? Where we start, you know, getting people to unearth those role models, taking the time to write in for people, and then equally getting people to respond and come out of their own comfort zones and imposter syndromes to, you know, that's why the awards exist, to get people to fight off the imposter syndrome. So there was never any way we're going to just make do on this. So we had like you say, it was a brilliant night on the 7th for MPW Cheers, and that will just whet your appetite for the show we are going to bring to you in March. We're also going to double it up to kind of really put a whole umbrella over International Women's Day as well, which will have been the day before. So we want to make this the ultimate show. You know, people talk about virtual events and, I'm just going to be sat on Zoom doing this. No, we want it to be, we want and we will make it energetic. We will make it to be inclusive. We want you to be part of this conversation. We want you to feel proud that you're either supporting, you're nominated, you're a partner. You know, it's really important to us that, you know, it is that recognition, representation. You can hear me going on about it because it has been a really tough decision to make because, you know, as you know, when we postponed, we were only 4 days out. So everything was done. Everything was created. Everything was
paid for. Let's not beat around the bush. It was paid for, yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing as well. You know, people have paid for tickets, paid for tables. You know, we want to make sure people have a great event and not just, you know, we don't, sounds awful, isn't it? You know, I've literally been sleepless nights about it because you don't want people, it's not happening now then. You've just got to give me your money back. You know, and I'm like, well, It's a real challenge. It's a real challenging situation to sort of be in. But the great thing I'm very proud of, back in March, you know, we paid every supplier. So we always pay more suppliers first. So everything is paid. Everything is invested in, bought, ready to go. We're going to do it in a different way. We're going to do it in a different way. We're going to do it in a memorable way. And we're going to do it in a way that makes the class of 2020 truly recognised and truly celebrated. So I'm excited to do something different, and I think we'll watch the climate as well. We'll watch where we're at, and if we can, we're EY, our headline partners, we're looking at how we can we create some virtual hubs? Can we create that? If we can't get everyone together, is there somewhere maybe we can get some people too in small numbers or whatever? We don't know. We're just going to have to watch as the vaccine kicks in. And so we'll move into hybrid. We'll flex with this because we want to create the show that is worthy of your recognition, So that's what's really important. So no one needs to think that we're just putting a Zoom code out there and you join along. We want this to be, well, it is a production. It's what we do.
Make sure you keep on listening, keep on watching on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and of course online, northernpowerwomen.com, all the details. But it will be a fantastic show. Yeah, we're not going to be sat at our kitchen table with the brew going, and the winner is someone. It's going to be a big event. So please do come and get involved and included and engaged, because it's going to be not long to go. It's only 3 months, isn't it? It's going to go very quickly indeed. Hooray! No, don't panic. Look, that's really exciting. Can't wait to find out more about that and be involved with that, of course, as 2021, I can't believe we're nearly there, kicks in. But what I love about this time of year, even in a crazy year like 2020, is all these lists come out. And I'm a big fan of a list, Simone Roche. And one that really caught my eye this week was that Forbes have brought out the 2020 most powerful women in the world list. Do you know who number one is, if you haven't seen?
I have actually seen the image, but I couldn't actually see who was top. Kamala
Harris is number 3, actually. She's very much up there. I mean, I reckon this time next year she's going to be number 1. But of course, she is the incumbent vice president, first ever woman of colour to hold a senior office. Well, that senior in office. Of course, you had Condoleezza Rice and other women of colour who've been kind of in top places in the White House, but never at vice president level. So I'm really excited to see what she brings.
Could it be Michelle or Jacinda?
No, Michelle Obama is not in the top 10, actually, that I saw. She's definitely not in the top 5. I mean, she's someone who does fantastic work, but it's about that power, isn't it? So I find that's fascinating. Jacinda is not in there either in that top 5. Number 1, Angela Merkel, number 1 in the Forbes 2020 most powerful women. Number 2, it's the president of the European Central Bank. She's had quite a lot on her plate this year as Christine Lagarde. I think it's fair enough to say. So there she is at number 2. Kamala is number 3, Kamala Harris. Number 4, another woman who's been quite busy with a few bits and bobs she's had on her plate, is Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, who, was actually having dinner with Boris, wasn't she, last week? And number 5, she is a woman who obviously is injecting us with the vaccine and putting chips into our brains so she can control us, according to vast swathes of crazy social media users. Melinda Gates of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Yeah, so and the work that she does is just incredible. So really excited to see her actually up there.
And it's interesting, we talked about the traits of leadership report that we're doing with Teesside University, and they're the names that come up in. And it's interesting that I threw in, didn't I? Obviously, everyone throws in. We all love Michelle Obama. I love Michelle Obama, but love Michelle Obama. I do. But it's interesting, isn't it? The difference, the power, the influence, the different. But how great is it that you've got women that we've just mentioned, Jacinda, you've got Michelle, who are not in that list because there's even more kick-ass, powerful women and using power in a different global influence way. So it's fantastic. It's fantastic, and I can't wait to be bringing out and talking about the traits, those traits of those individual leaders, because they're all different. Yeah. And Angela Merkel was definitely somebody that we talked about quite early on, I think, and it's probably somebody that I think, actually, I don't know whether I see her as that, because you could see her as always quite stern or quite serious, but actually, being powerful doesn't mean to say you have to be happy-go-lucky, high-fiving all the time, does it?
No, absolutely not. And it is interesting to see those different forms of leader. I mean, you see, Kamala Harris and Angela Merkel, 2 incredibly powerful women, great leaders, but as you said, in completely different ways, completely different ways. So as I said, I'm excited to see Kamala sort of emerge, I suppose, onto this world stage that she was clearly destined to be part of as 2021 moves on. So happy days. Now, look, talking of great leaders and inspirational people, should we get life lessons in our lives for this week? Who have we got?
Oh, Abigail Reid. She's a freelance journalist, copywriter and teacher. And we met at the start of this year at an event, one of our role model events in Spinningfields. And she writes for the Voice newspaper. And I think she is the sole Northern representative for the Voice for a national newspaper. And she is a passionate writer. And what did she say? She's unfortunate enough to make a living from it, but she's got such a wealth of experience out there and just is brilliant. I love these life lessons. These were they actually did pick me up this week because it's been one of those weeks.
I'm Abigail Reid. I'm a freelance journalist, copywriter and teacher. Tell us about an important role model in your life. Well, that would be a former employer who is now a very close friend. At the time I met her, I was working casually for a local newspaper. I went into her organisation to interview her, and I was immediately struck by how this small woman exuded so much authority. She was in control. Not long after, she offered me a role in the organisation, and I accepted. What I learnt from her was that as a manager, you're not expected to be superwoman and do it all. She was great at delegating, but I think her greatest skill was finding the right people to delegate tasks to. She's a person of action and will talk the talk and walk the walk, and that's what I admire about her. She gets things done. She's taught me to work with the right people and not people you have to carry, to work with compassion for others, and most importantly, to have high expectations. What's one piece of advice that really stuck with you? Last year I attended a British Council conference for creatives. Here I met people from many different creative professions, and one thing that struck me was that, like me, there were people who didn't fit into one itemised box. In fact, they fit quite a few. I remember listening to one of the speakers who touched on this subject, and we were advised to embrace that aspect of our professional lives because adaptability was one of the key requirements for people in the future workforce. In fact, the title of the conference could just as easily have been Piecework, we were told, because it was an accurate description of how we all worked. That advice may seem insignificant to many, but I'm someone who's always enjoyed working on many different things and at times simultaneously. I get a real buzz out of it, but I felt as though I should be more linear in my approach to work or narrow myself down to one thing because of everyone else's expectations. But this advice struck a chord with me, and it was from that point that I truly accepted that this is who I am, how I work, and not only am I pretty good at it, I'm also fiercely equipped to flourish in an ever-changing workforce. What advice would you pass on to someone starting their career today? Well, I would say that whilst exams and qualifications are important, they are not the only weight your applications will carry. Develop yourself in other areas, learn new skills and keep up with technology. Diversify. The workforce of today and tomorrow will not lend itself to having one career for the rest of your life. Be adaptable and embrace changes. Never be afraid of it. Believe in yourself first and foremost, because from what I've observed, it's the people with confidence, self-belief, determination and resilience who succeed and are most fulfilled. Not always the people with the highest qualifications. There'll be times when you're going to get knocked back, knocked down, or you just outright fail. But some of the most successful people have failed many times, and this is where resilience comes into play. Give yourself time to heal, then put your next strategy together. When have you faced imposter syndrome, and what did you do about it? Well, I would face imposter syndrome every time I wrote something and submitted that writing to be read by someone else. I was always waiting for that call to say, Abigail, what is this? This isn't good enough. In the whole of my writing career, that call never came. What I did was I made a mental list of my achievements, and I realised that actually I've achieved quite a lot. I had to remind myself that none of these opportunities dropped in my lap. They were the result of sheer hard work. I'm not just a writer, I'm a great writer, and if I want to achieve the goals I've set for myself, I need to keep that at the forefront of my mind. That was me, not an imposter. When have you taken a risk and what happened? Well, when I completed my PGCE, I was offered a full-time teaching job at the school I was working at. I absolutely loved the job and the children, and I cried buckets when I made the decision. and when it was announced in Assembly, but I knew that I still wanted to pursue work in other areas and not be confined to one workplace, so I turned that offer down. I didn't exactly have anything lined up, and I hadn't mapped out entirely what I was going to do. I just knew that I wanted to combine my new skills with the skills I already had prior to teaching. So I set up in business as a freelance copywriter and tutor. The tutoring work came in without any advertising whatsoever, just word of mouth. And within a couple of months, I started writing for the Voice newspaper and other writing work began to roll in. Soon I was rushed off my feet, and I really didn't have to do much for all of that to happen. If I was single with no children, then perhaps it wouldn't have been too great a risk to take. But I'm married, 2 children, I have a mortgage, I have bills to pay, but eventually the risk paid off.
Thank you so much to the wonderful Abigail Reid for your life lessons this week. What I loved particularly about what she said was there's no need to narrow down your skill set. You can have this sort of multi-hyphenated career. I mean, there's that phrase, isn't it, that I grew up with, as I'm sure you did as well. Oh, jack of all trades, master of none. And as someone who is a presenter, producer, podcast coach, editor, writer, I do sometimes think, oh gosh, should I just focus in on one thing and just do one thing? And then I think, no, because actually my life would be incredibly boring. And I like having lots of different things on my plate every day and playing lots and lots of different roles. So thank you very much, Abigail, for that. And I love as well, she talked about the risk paying off right at the end there. So love it. You know what I'm going to say, Simone, don't you? Want to hear, please? Want to hear from you. If you are listening to this podcast for the first time, the 100th time, whatever it may be, and you haven't sent your life lessons, we would so love to hear from you. Do get in touch. Bob us an email, podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. And it could be you appearing on this podcast very, very soon indeed. It's dead easy. It'll take 5 minutes of your time. But really, this is the bit that we know people absolutely love listening to. So thank you. Now, I mentioned I'm a fan of lists, Simone Roche.
Lists you are. Is there a new one?
There's another one. Well, as I said, this time of year, all the lists come out, don't they? And one that really pleased me was Google have released their top search terms of 2020. I'm going to give you a bit of a... So guess what the number one search for word was in 2020 in the United Kingdom. It's not hard. What do you reckon?
COVID.
Pretty much coronavirus was, of course, the coronavirus, the most searched for word. How to, people go, how to, and what what do you think the biggest search for how to phrases were?
How to cure coronavirus.
No. It's much more DIY than that. How to make a face mask was number one, the number one how-to question. Number 2, how to make hand sanitizer at home, the second most searched for. Number 3, how to make bread. We knew it would be in there, right?
Oh, where's the how to do a jigsaw? Where's that?
Bizarrely, how to cut your own hair was also in there in the top 10. Number 6, how to cook eel. How is that the most searched for thing? Where did that come from?
Oh, no. I don't know. That makes me feel a bit ill.
It's really bizarre. In Who questions, the first Who was who won the election. I think we all know the answer, even though some people won't accept it. And so many more brilliant ones, all about DIY hand sanitizer, DIY click and collect. But then it was talking about the top 5 most searched for terms, and coronavirus was number 1, US election was number 2. And number 3 really struck me, actually, because it made me realise what a long year 2020 has been, in fact, because the number 3, the third most searched for word or phrase or name in 2020 in the United Kingdom was Caroline Flack.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my goodness, this shows what a long year this has actually been, because if you'd asked me when Caroline Flack died, I would have sworn, it must have been a couple of years ago. That's how long it feels since that awful, awful loss of Caroline. So that sort of made me, reflect, I suppose, on everything that has gone on in this year and how long it's been for all of us.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe that. Gosh, I would absolutely have said the same. Definitely. Gosh, that was a couple of years ago. Funny, actually, we're doing a 12 days of Christmas, reflecting on the 12 months that we have just had.
Yeah.
And I had to go back and look in the January to June, because one of the team who's doing it wasn't here then. I was looking at what we were doing in January, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I couldn't even remember. And it's funny the reason I say that is we recorded the podcast in Bradford in February for when we used to take our podcast on the road. And we had Nicola Chance-Thompson, lovely Nicola.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how she had joined that campaign. She was getting trolling, and she had gone, who had she engaged with? Who's the Hollywood star? Oh gosh, it's going to come back to me now, Nicky. But Nicky, he came in and he was a friend of Caroline Flack's, and he was kind of advocating for this. This is not good. We need to call this behaviour out. And so much so, where are we? 9 months, 10 months down the line now, Nicky is talking about that in House of Parliament. I know, sorry, this is not the light end to the podcast as normal, but it's sort of that reflection of, gosh, I cannot believe that you're right. Yeah. That was this year. But wow.
February.
What a year.
February she died, I know. And I think it's important when we do reflect on everything that has gone on, because it has been tough for so many of us and it continues to be so. But my gosh, a lot has happened this year. And I know it feels like it's gone by in a flash and a whisker and all the rest of it. But actually, and we're going to reflect more in the next couple of weeks, actually, about everything we have achieved and everything we're going to look forward to in 2021 as well. So listen out next week, because we would love you to get in touch. We've got a few questions we want to ask you to come and get involved, so you can come and join in the conversation. So yes, excited for that.
Absolutely. And just one thing from the MPW Cheers we did earlier this week, it was really interesting, some of the songs that we had, that we asked, what songs got you through. So we've created a Northern Power Women Spotify playlist, which we'll share in the show notes. We've got Things Can Only Get Better, We Are Warriors, Unstoppable, Optimistic, Bring It All Back, The Only Way Is Up, Back to Life. So just some of those just did make me chuckle a little bit. So brilliant. So and actually please keep those coming as well, because we've got to have some uplift, but we've also got to have this reflection, and we love reflecting with you guys as well.
Perfect stuff. Be brilliant. Do get in touch, please. podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. You can get on Twitter @NorthPowerWomen. So there you go. Thank you so much for listening as ever. The next episode of the Northern Power Women podcast is coming your way on Monday, December the 21st. Until then, take care. Have a great rest of your week. The Northern Power Women podcast is a What Goes On media production.